My name is Ifeyemi Andrew, and today on the show we would be discussing with a former lawmaker. He was a member of the National House of Representatives, and we've had him one time on the Morning Crossfire before. This would be, if not his third or second appearance on the show. Honorable Bernard Mikko would be joining us. And we are looking at the recent allegations that came up just yesterday. This allegation was moved by Ugo Chinyere, who is the leader of members in the House of Reps, who many have described in the PDP as opposition to the FCT minister and those loyal to him in the PDP. And what is the grouse? This time they say there's plots by these individuals to get the court to stop funds from getting to the local government councils in Rivers State. Now, yesterday, Ugo Chinyere had put out this statement, and well, as you would imagine, it's gotten a lot of people talking. And for us here on the show this morning, it would be to look at the possibilities of this happening. Himself, leading the opposition lawmakers at the National Assembly, raised this alarm yesterday. He said a group that's loyal to the minister have even secured a court injunction to stop the monthly allocations of funds. Now, how possible this is, especially when you know that an election has been conducted following what happened at the Supreme Court, and we have council chairmen in the various local government councils in Rivers State. So what then could this achieve if it is anything to go by? Well, not to really look at the allegation, but to look at whether it is possible for this sort of an injunction to be obtained from a court. Let's quickly go over to my guest. Good morning, Honorable Mikko. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigerian Info.
All right, thank you very much. So just bring you up to speed. Already we were discussing this. Opposition lawmakers in the National Assembly, led by Honorable Ikenga Ugo Chinyere, is the spokesperson of that coalition, raised an alarm saying that there are fresh plots by a group loyal to the FCT minister to secure a court injunction to stop the monthly allocation of local government funds to the council areas in the state. Now, the last time I spoke with you here in the studio, you had told us that, well, it was the budget. I think we brought up the budget, and it was some of your comments were, well, anybody that wants to target the budget is targeting Rivers people. Well, there are some that would disagree with you. In this case, what would be your response if, looking at this allegation, first off, is it even possible that a court would stop funds that is meant for a tier of government with an injunction? And if it is possible, what are the circumstances?
Yes, let me thank you for this very informing question. First of all, the issue that you raised is highly speculative. You know, nothing has happened. But if it did happen, which means that the question that you have to ask, can the judiciary, can they amend the constitution through judicial ambush or radicalism? Section 62, subsection 6 of the Constitution states clearly about state joint local government accounts. And what the Supreme Court has done in the judgment, in the elite judgment, was to align, the aspirations of Nigerians of direct allocation to the local government, making it in contrast with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999. And with that contradiction, then it has to be resolved by an act of the National Assembly with concurrence of all the houses, 2/3 of all the houses of state assembly, and that will settle. But however, it remains a speculation, but I can assure you that any act to stop allocation going to local government, as we are seeing in Kano, will be an act of not only illegality but illegitimate, and it will be rejected by Nigerian people.
Thank God you brought the Kanu situation up, because I was going to make reference to that and say, well, even if you're saying this is what is clearly stated in the Constitution, we've seen in this country where court orders and injunctions and the rest of them have, not really followed what the Constitution provides for, and governments have been forced to obey it. You have highlighted the situation in Kano, which brings us to what the conversation is. As much as this is an allegation, we're not saying this is what it would be. But the point is, should that be possible for a court to do it? Are there conditions that could allow for a court to give an injunction to stop funds meant for a totally what should be an independent tier of government altogether, saying that they can't get funds? If that's the case, is it also possible to get a court injunction to say that states should not remit funds to the federal government, to the center?
Well, that is what it means. The court is governed by the rule of law, and that is the essence of our democracy. The Constitution is the ground norm. So every court, every rule of the court, every court judgment must align with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If that is done, then the states can resort to self-help by harvesting the resources of the state for running of the local of the state itself, which means that the federal will not be looking up to anything from the state government.
All right, and we need you to explain that so we get it. So if it gets to a point where, let's say, this happens and then allocation doesn't come to local governments directly from the federal government as it should, following the judgment we had from the Supreme Court, you're saying that states can, in their own wisdom, now say, all right, we can't send money to the center. We have to help ourselves and see what we can do for local government. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Remember that in this first republic, it was 50% states remit to the center, not the center remitting back to the states. And it was the Ronsi regime that reversed the strength. Now, you have listened to the central bank, the former central bank governor, saying that the amount of oil that is being loaded from the terminals are not known and very opaque. Now, the states can now go further by saying that we want to know the amount of oil, so that we ascertain the revenues through royalties and other fees that comes to the state. And they will refuse to remit or allow any loading, from the, except these things are known. It could be done through a public action, a mass action, or even the court itself to determine whether these things are possible.
Is it also possible then? I mean, if we look at what's going on and what the courts are, well, many would not agree with, but then the injunctions we're getting from the courts, again, I refer to the Kano situation. What precedents does this set? Is it also then possible that through the courts you can stop funds from coming to a state government?
You only go to court. You only go to court for judicial interpretation when the semantics of the Constitution is ambiguous. Section 162, subsection 3. Is clear on joint allocation. And it's clear on allocation, 13% allocation. And the parameters have been straightened out. You see, in trying to give court judgment or legislate, you don't target individuals. It is meant for the purpose of good governance and serving the people. The people should be at the center of every legislation and center of every action taken by. There are three arms of government. And if they are begin by judicial radicalism or ambush, I think it will be resisted by the people, or they will resort to self-help.
The Supreme Court judgment had said that, well, if any of the councils were running caretaker chairman, that would be a reason why funds would not get to them. That would mean they would not get funds because constitutionally
we have passed that stage. We have done election.
That's where I'm coming to. That's where I'm coming to. So the fact that you now have an election conducted and have elected council chairman, should that be something that the court would say, well, should that render any injunction powerless? Let me put it that way.
Of course, it is the people that are sovereign. The people is sovereign, not the courts. So we are enlightened enough to see between the lines. You see, if you let me use this. If a referee refuses to blow a foul in a game, the video assistant referee and the stakeholders can point it out, and it can be adjudicated, and the match can even be cancelled. So in this matter, the courts are not the final arbiters in a political, in a democratic dispensation. It is the people. And some of these things are clear enough. Some of these things are clear enough for people to understand.
Mm.
You know?
All right. We have a very short commercial coming.
The courts cannot do much in the matter that is clear. The courts cannot go against the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, even against its own rules. The court is an establishment of the rule of law, so they must follow rules and laws of the land.
As much as the situation with Kanu and River State are not the same, I think it's also very pertinent that we also look at the part where there are concerns on the part of governors. And if you had followed the news, there have been different allegations about governors trying to find one way or the other to, divert the funds that should go directly to local government. We've seen a situation in Anambra State where many are beginning to question Governor Soludo. I think trying to look at how to find lacunas and areas within the laws on how we can alter the funds when clearly what it should be is this fund should be going directly. There are those that have said it would be impossible to establish this if there's a joint account being operated with state and local governments. How do we then establish that? Because that would mean an amendment to that act in the Constitution, which at the moment we still are yet to see. But you would also agree that there are times where the judgments of the Supreme Court could, take a
conflict.
Yes.
Conflict with the Constitution.
Yes, and in those cases, people will tend to even obey the judgment of the Supreme Court and later go back to adjust.
No, it's wrong to.
Is that the case? Is that the case? If that's not the case, why did all the states obey and go conduct an election, knowing that there is this provision in the Constitution that still suggests that as long as this is there, it will be difficult to give local governments funds directly to the councils.
What the Supreme Court has done is to highlight, the provisions of the Constitution that democratically elected local government councils. And if they have done so, I think what has to be resolved in this contradiction is for the states, to now concur with the National Assembly in bringing forward a law, by amending the Constitution, Section 162, Section 6 of the Constitution, to say that, yes, from now, it has to be joint. For now, they have to do funds directly to the local governments and not through joint allocation committee. So that's subsection 6 of 162 with the judgment and the Constitution. They have to be on the same page. Otherwise, it will amount to impunity and out of chaos, to do otherwise.
All right. We have a short commercial coming. When we return from that, we'll get more of your thoughts. And I'm pretty sure plenty of questions to be asked from the listener who would attend to all of those. Just stay on the line for us.
The show continues after this break on Nigeria Info.
All to glory.
right, the conversation continues here on the Morning Crossfire, and my guest, Honorable Bernard Mikko, is still with us via phone. Honorable, thank you for staying with us.
Thank you very much.
All right, we don't have a lot of time. There's still a few things I want to touch on. We had a luncheon that was held in Rivers State, courtesy the FCT minister, and quite a few things were said in that luncheon that I would have loved for you to respond to. I'll be bringing up those topics as we make progress. But first, I'd like to take some messages on Facebook. There's several messages, and some things I'd really like you to still enlighten us on. Are state governments within the constitutional rights, the powers of a state government, to say that if funds do not go to local governments, they can? Because you had mentioned it before, but I'm asking to know if they are constitutionally empowered to do so, to say they are not sending money to the center, but would have to, from what they have, manage their local governments because the local governments are not getting funds from the center.
I have told you before, the only way to do that is to amend the constitution. Anything other than that will be act of impunity. And if that happens, the state concerned, particularly River State, can resort to self-help. And the first law of nature is that of self-preservation. So what the state can do is to preserve their essence, their dignity, their culture and heritage by harvesting all the resources of the state and in a proper negotiation, pay 3 or 13% to the federal as it was before, instead of the 50%. That is what the state by harvesting all the resources in the state and in a proper negotiation, allocate 3 or even 13% to the federal. And this is the only essence of development in our country. And that would be my suggestion on that.
All right.
It is act of impunity, act of illegality, and act of judicial radicalism for any judge or anybody at all sitting in the judicial panel to begin to suggest the amendment of the Constitution from the back door.
All right. Then it brings us to this. If all you've said is true, and which would mean it would be difficult for, a judicial arm of government to sit down and produce such an injunction. If that's correct, then should these allegations be anything that we take seriously? Should people be concerned about these allegations, or perhaps it's just some smoke screen by the opposition coalition from what is really happening?
Politics is a game of self-aggrandizement, full of ego and hubris. The Supreme Court itself is a court of policy, and policy is the management of strategies, is the management of strategies by political leadership. So the court itself would not fold its hands and allow, the kind of chaos, to happen. So I don't believe that anybody in his wise senses will listen to the whims and caprices of an individual targeted at another individual. Remember, in this case, the target is the Rivers people, where they want to use the state as a whole as an indemnity for political brigandage. So Rivers people will not accept this. And even because I don't think the court will accept it. Let's be on the safe side that it is just mere speculation, to forestall the event happening. But in case Rivers State will know what to do, we have resources in the state, we fall back to our resources, harness them, and in a proper negotiation, we give 3 or 13% to the center. I think that would be the best thing to do. Because we can't die because of others.
All right,
we have to preserve our nature, our essence.
All right, let's take a few messages on Facebook. The number to call is 0817-923-0007. 0817-923-0003. Again, 0817-923-0007. and 0817923003. I was also stating before that the situation with Kanu is quite different from what it is in Rivers State, because in Rivers State we already had an election and we have elected council chairman. So if that rumor is something that anyone would look at, well, like my guest has said, it might be really difficult. And if it indeed even happens or turns out to be true, that happens or comes out of any court, then, well, self-help would be the way. In Kanu, on the other hand, well, the fear is October is running out, and the agreement that was entered into with the president after the Supreme Court judgment was 3 months, and that would elapse in October. And as it stands, it's difficult for Kanu to conduct that elections, whether or not it will go on with it. I think it's about a few days to the election in Kanu, if I'm not mistaken. If whether or not that would happen, we wait to see. But we know that there are several rulings that have come out of the courts in Kanu, disqualifying the chairman of the Kanu State Independent Electoral Commission. All of that you can find, if you Google it, you find it online. So I can't give us all those details, not what the conversation is for. But I just need to make the clarity so that you do not misunderstand the comparison we had when we were discussing Kanu and Rivers State situation. Magnus in Mile 3, let's start with you. Should this be even taken seriously or should just be looked at as maybe we're responding or people are responding to it? It's just a storm in a teacup. Magnus in Mile 3, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Andrew.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to say that the issue of court, cases in the states, I want to advise the Rivers State government to, in as much as we know that the judiciary is up there to do what they need to do when it comes to matters like this. The Rivers State government can go beyond the fears of the judiciary and concentrate on things that will better the lives of Rivers people. As a matter of urgency, Andrew, and the people of Orashi are actually...
Hello, Magnus. All right, I think we have to move on to another caller, JJ and Rumigbo. Unfortunately, hello, Magnus.
I know this court case.
Hello, Magnus. I don't know if you can hear us. Okay.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Magnus.
All right, Magnus. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hear most of what you were trying to say, Magnus. Got some interruptions there, the service providers. We'll try to reestablish contact, but let's dwell on some messages on Facebook at the moment. Godwin Agwanwo says, if you me and your guest, concerning this matter, I think it should be taken seriously, not looked at just an allegation, because there are external forces from the FCT that would want to use this power to stop local governments from being autonomous, but Rivers people would not accept that. Evidence Sunday says, yes, of course, when you have an enemy in the FCT, we will stop at nothing just to ensure that this government is not stable. Anything can happen. However, the Lord is our strength. Thank God Ability says, any judge that would stop allocation of local government is an enemy of the people. Several more messages coming in. This one says here, let's see. Okay, election has not been done properly, so till then, no allocation. Christian Olu is sending in that one. WOKK says that alleged plot shows the level of political wickedness over the plight and welfare of the people. Do you know the number of workers and people such a plot or move will adversely affect? That move is anti the well-being or welfare of the people. Secondly, if such move succeeds at all, it also means that no developmental work will be executed too. Just think about it. Keep the messages coming in on Facebook at Nigeria Info 92.3 PH. That's the Facebook handle. On WhatsApp, we have several messages as well. I'll be taking a few of them. This one says here, well, I think it's just a speculation. I don't think legally or otherwise withholding of council funds would be possible since it has elected officials. I see any attempt to withhold monthly allocation as just an act of seeking unenforceable actions. I mean, for earnest, which is something I was asking. I'll come back to you now, Honorable Mikko.
Yes.
I mean, this person is asking the legality, if there is a situation at all where funds can be withheld Is there a situation that could warrant for such a move, whether at the state or federal level, for funds meant for an arm of government to be withheld?
Well, if funds is being withheld, because now funds are generated to federal government into a distributable pool and now distributed back to the states. If that happens, the state can generate the funds itself and not remit to federal government.
But Mr. Mikko, let me remind you that in the politics we play in Nigeria in the past, we have seen situations where, because of political party differences, under different situations where at the center you have a different political party and at the state a different political party, we have seen how the federal government at that time in that level have tried with various tactics and what's so-called tricks, delay or not even give the funds meant for certain states. Some will say that in Rivers State, we've seen that happen before. There are many other states that you can make example of where we've seen similar things, or even when the funds come, they come late or don't come at all, or come in bits, or they are being owed. There are various antiques that have played within the politics of this country that has shown that this kind of a situation is very possible to happen.
Remember, the only permanent thing in life is change. For this thing to have happened in the past does not mean that it will remain the same. Remember that the current FCT minister, as governor of Rivers State, took the federal government to court over taxation, and the Rivers State government won the case against the federal government. So I don't think that anything the federal government does is the right thing. These are people, and if they are protecting their self-interest, their interest should not, conflict with the interest of Rivers State, particularly as enshrined in the Constitution.
All right.
So some people want to seek attention, and the interest of Rivers must be taken in totality with the units, other federating units, so that we can exist as a federation.
All right. JJ and Rumigbo, good morning. Hello, JJ, good morning. All right, we lost the call from J&J. The phone number is still 0817-923-0003. You can also call 0817-923-0007. So let's get those calls coming in. I know that we've been having difficulties with the phone lines from the morning hours. Hopefully that has been resolved. JJ and Rumigbo, can you hear me now? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Okay, go on, JJ.
Yes, let me greet your guest in the studio. He talked about the courts cannot overrule the Constitution. I remember during Buhari's administration when Buhari brought the Order 10 to give the local government and state assembly and judiciary autonomy, financial autonomy. The court ruled in favor of the governors, that's the Supreme Court. And with this one now that this global administration has filed, the court now ruled against under the same administration. I don't get it at all. So if the court does not supersede the Constitution, how come the judgment now that the Supreme Court has given that they now need amendment of the Constitution when they are supposed to amend the Constitution? But I also support his view, that's your guest's view, that if the federal government is saying you will not send money to the local government, then I think whatever activity of the federal government at the local government areas should be stopped too, so that it now come back to the local government, come back to the state, because you cannot take money from here and not share it to other areas, and the areas didn't benefit. And somebody sent a message saying that, the local government election did not do this. Which court have said that? So as far as I'm concerned, Rivers State has no problem, and the money that is accrued to Rivers people must be brought back. If not, we take her by force.
All right, Isaiah and Buguma, good morning.
Andrew, good morning. Let me greet the guests. Good morning. Andrew, you see, when we say the sovereignty belongs to the people, I think they should not take the people for a ride. And they should not take our quietness for a fool. Because this is where the golden egg is being laid. Yesterday, I've sounded loud and clear, whether it is a threat or it is something that is being bargained or being imagined. I think it should be thrown away. That should not even come to light, because You can't tell me that people are looking for every loophole to get to the treasury of River State. And these are just few single individuals. And for that sake, a kangaroo court in this country will give such a judgment to place an injunction on the people. Do you know that the grassroots, the third tier of the government in this country, mostly in this part of this country, is where the golden egg is being laid to form government in this country. And when you now bring that to bear, what are you telling? You are telling the people to respond.
All right,
to
Isaiah, thank you very much. We have to wrap up. Let's just hear from Good News quickly and then wrap up from my guest. Good News, good morning.
Good morning, my brother, man. Generally, let me just say where I think the problem is coming from. I blame the NJC, who are in charge of regulating the bodies of the bench and the benchers. If not, how will a judge just stand up because people went to your court? You will not look into the law. You feel that everybody is innocent until proven guilty. You just give an order, trying to stop election, trying to stop allocation. The last time some of allocation happened was 100% done this same Tinubu right now in Lagos. And everybody frowned, and it was not even a court order. And somebody who contest allocation will be stopped. Because
Good news.
The resources coming to us, they should also other sources. This is brought. The risk will not be there. If you die it, the location.
All right, thank you, Honorable Ben Mikko. Time. That's it. Facebook Nigeria Info 2.8. You can listen to the whole session again. Watch and drop your questions. My name is Andrew Goodman.